David, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, Dr. Jaffe. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. And so glad you're here. Rather than have me introduce you, if you'd be so kind, please tell our audience a little bit about you, and then we'll get into your program.
Okay, awesome. My name is David Medansky. I'm known as the health guy because I love being the inspiration to others for living a healthy life. And what I do is I help people go from feeling tired, exhausted, and embarrassed to being energetic, admired, and having vitality in their life.
Good
The reason
goals.
yes, because the reason I do that is that was me before. And so I understand the frustrations and humiliation and embarrassment of being overweight, being fat, and being told at age 61 in July of 2016 by my doctor, based on my lab results and being fat, that I had a 95% chance for a fatal heart attack. That was my
That was
wake.
probably true. And fortunately, you seem hopefully to have recovered.
Yes, I avoided the heart attack. It was my wake-up call. And during the next 4 months, I shed 50 pounds, which was 25% of my total body weight. More importantly, I've kept it off because instead of going on a diet, I changed my lifestyle. And then in June of 2022, at age 67, I hiked up Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh,
So I don't let age be a reason for people not wanting to get back into living a healthy
age
lifestyle.
is an artifact of too much bad and too little good. Age is an artifact. Your chronological age, you can look at your license or your passport, and that's what it is. But your functional age could be younger or older than your chronology. By my predictive biomarkers, I'm functioning at half my chronological age.
That's
And
fantastic.
I actually was a student of Bhante Dharmawara. I'm going to hold up his book for just a minute. Bhante Dharmawara lived to be 110, and at 106, we had him profiled in great detail at NIH and CDC and this and that because we could. And he came out functioning like a 40-year-old. So I lay all this information out for him, and he looks at me and smiles and he says, 40 is a good age.
Yeah, I'm 70, so my tagline is 70 is my new 40.
Good. 70 is the new 40. Can be. You could be older or younger than your biology.
Absolutely.
So
However,
let's get into some of the details. Your book is called Jaded Health. What will I learn from immersing myself in the book?
yeah, this is the book right here. And I have identified what I call 9 simple golden rules for living a healthy life. And when people see those 9 golden rules, and I'm happy to share them now, they say, I know that. I understand you know it. The question is, are you doing it? And most people say no. So then the next question is, well, if your health is a priority, why aren't you doing what you know what to do? Because that's where I help people. So the 9 golden rules, if I may share, is drink an adequate amount of water. And depending on who you listen to, it can be either 64 ounces or a minimum of one half of your total body weight. And I always say pure water. And again, depending on who you ask about pure water, it can be distilled water, spring water, or reverse osmosis with the 6-stage filter.
Let me jump in a little bit on that. The standard, gold standard, is deep well mineral water. We happen to have that at our house. We are very fortunate.
Yeah.
Most commercially available water from the tap is contaminated terribly.
Yes.
And from my point of view, is actually gray water. So I agree with your hydration. I drink a lot of mineral water, but I'm a little concerned about distilled water unless you can put back into the distilled water something like Celtic sea salts so the micro minerals are restored. Because by definition, distilled water is absent, at least most minerals. Reverse osmosis for most people is not worth the time and the effort because the membrane, that's the heart of the reverse osmosis system, develops micro tears, micro cuts due to the minerals in the water. And that reduces dramatically the lifespan of the membrane. So the folks that follow my guidance would change the membrane every 3 months, not every 6 to 12 months.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I am very cautious about water treatments, except the old traditional. My son did a food foresting project in Indonesia for Willie Smiths. And one of the things they did was to filter the water through charcoal,
Yep.
through humus, through sand, and wood chips, hard wood chips. And the water coming out of that is actually pretty good. That was taught to me by Tom Brown, the tracker, and John Young, Wilderness Awareness, because we have places in the woods. We like being out in nature and moving around on the hillsides and wherever, but we want to be safe in the woods.
Exactly. So that's golden rule number one. And again, because our bodies are 60 to 70% water, it's not soda, diet soda, fruit juices, or fruit flavored beverages or milk. And golden rule number two is to avoid highly processed, ultra processed, and manufactured foods. I refer to them as imposter foods or edible products. Golden rule number three is to eat real, whole, holistic foods. So instead of drinking a glass of orange juice, eat an orange. And the reason I say that is most of the orange juice out there is toxic. It's full of sugar, and it takes 4 to 8 medium oranges to make one glass of orange juice. So I ask people, would you eat 4 to 8 oranges at one time? And most people say, no. Yet that's how much sugar they're absorbing in their body with one glass of orange juice. And again, because of the deceptive marketing by the food industry, they believe it's healthy.
But the whole fruit is healthier,
Exactly.
even if you decide to have an apple or a pear or an orange or a grapefruit or a nectarine. Wash it, the surface,
Yeah.
maybe give it a little bath in baking soda and or apple cider vinegar. But now eat the whole fruit as much as you can. Now, with the apples, we actually eat the seeds, the pip. That's a choice. It's good fiber, but it's a bit chewy. So,
What about the cyanide in the seeds?
well, that's very interesting. There is just enough cyanide, and this is an issue of balance in biology. There's just enough cyanide to stimulate your immune defense and repair system to be tuned up, but not enough cyanide to harm you.
Ah, okay, that's good to
But
know.
but on this question of cyanide, you get to B12 very quickly because in the 1930s, they stabilized B12 with cyanide, cyanocobalamin, on the basis that you needed a few micrograms a day. Well, today we need milligrams, and I would not recommend taking that form of cyanide. I would recommend nature's B12, hydroxycobalamin, in milligram amounts.
Okay, excellent. Golden rule number four is to eat slower because we're all in a hurry and we tend to eat too fast. Mark David wrote a book called The Slow Down Diet. And in there, he recommends that if you take 10 minutes or 5 minutes for breakfast, give yourself 10, and at a minimum, 30 minutes for lunch or 30 minutes for dinner. Golden rule number five is to eat smaller portions because people may not realize our food portions have been supersized. In the 1900s, the average size dinner plate was 9 inches in diameter. Today it's 12, and in restaurants it's 13 to 15 inches, except in Europe where it's 9 inches, except for the UK. So I always recommend people use a salad plate instead of a dinner size plate. And it's an optical illusion. If you put the same amount of food on a salad plate as you do a dinner size plate, on the dinner plate, it'll look less, and on the salad plate, it'll look more. So we have it reversed. Instead of putting salads on salad plates, we should put them on dinner plates. The other thing is when you go to a restaurant, I always recommend that if you order a meal, get a to-go box or share it. And then if you use a to-go box, cut half, take half to go and eat the rest. And that way you're getting 2 meals for the price of one. Save some money. Golden rule number 6 is to get adequate sleep, at least 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep. Golden rule number 7 is to rest to digest. That's an intermittent fast. Most people are doing it without realizing it. So in my opinion, and again, it depends on which expert you talk to, I believe 12 hours or more is an intermittent fast. So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, and you stop eating at 7 o'clock, and you get 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, and your first meal is at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, that's a 12-hour fast. What I do is when I get up, I drink 20 ounces of water to rehydrate. Also, water is a natural appetite suppressant, so you're not hungry. Golden rule number 8 is to think positive because 80% of our thoughts are negative. So imagine if we switched it to 80% positive. And then golden rule number 9 is to walk each day. I recommend a minimum of 30 minutes or longer. Rebel Wilson, the actress, lost 77 pounds in a year, walking an hour each day. And I realized not everybody has an hour to devote to walking each day. However, Mindy Kaling also lost weight. And what she did is when she had a 10 or 15-minute break, instead of going on social media or texting friends, she'd go for a 10 or 15-minute walk. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, 5 times throughout the day, you're getting 30, 40, 50 minutes of walking. So those are the 9 simple golden rules.
Lovely. Now, how are you more successful than most? Because we agree, these are golden rules. These are live long and well rules. These are be here now rules. I find one of the more helpful things to assist people to do is to live in the moment. If you live in the past, you might get depressed. If you live in the future, you might get anxious. Neither of those is recommended. Your cortisol and adrenaline goes up, your dopamine and oxytocin go down. So I want to reverse the average today. You mentioned processed foods. Half of what young people eat today are ultra-processed foods. I just say no to all of that, not just the food dyes and colors and preservatives and the wrong salt, the wrong fat, the lack of fiber. I want to shop around the perimeter of the market. I'm very careful about going down the aisles.
Yes.
If possible, I want to pick up the food, whole food, which you find around the edge of the market generally. That then eliminates plastic wraps, anything that comes in plastic. Any beverage in plastic has so much microplastic and phthalates, and it goes on and on and on. So I think to simplify, to make it doable for people, wholeness, nature, nurture are our guides. And that means healthy water, healthy whole food, and eat at home as much as possible. I enjoy going out in the garden, picking some rosemary, parsley, or some herbs, or some brassica, and coming in and feeding people. And I'm glad you mentioned that it's good to eat about half of what you want, or maybe a little bit more, and then pause. My main teachers always said, do one thing at a time. If you're eating, just eat. Don't look at a screen. Don't even talk much with other people. But then in that few minutes when you're deciding, do I want any more or is this enough? And if you're eating crisped or fatty or processed foods, it's easy to be overfed and undernourished. But if you make the transition, because it is a bit of a makeover, as we have done for many years, and I think you too,
Yeah.
your joy of living goes up, your vitality goes up, your problem-solving ability goes up. Your brains, both the central brain and the gut brain, continue to work because the vagus super nerve highway is operating in balance, in harmony. It turns out a little bit of cortisol is good. It's what gets you up. It's called eustress, according to Hans Selye. But most people, when they say stress, they mean distress. They mean the burdensome, slowly erosive, many forms of inflammation, which is really repair deficit. And so we concentrate on lifestyle to repair, renew, rehabilitate, restore. And the results are so satisfying. If you get healthier, the people around you get healthier. If you get sick, the people around you will get sicker. That's called the spreading phenomenon. It's well documented. So I think whether you do it because you care about the people you care about, or you do it because of self-care, which is necessary for thriving, which is what I want. I don't want to just survive. I think you share with me the desire to thrive.
I agree with you. And I tell people, especially in my age group or older, you have a choice. You can exist, you can live, or you can thrive. And I choose to thrive. And I also tell people you can choose to be a participator in life where you're active and doing things, or you can be a spectator watching everybody else. So do you want to get on the ground? Yeah.
Thriving in the 21st century. We're on the same wavelength. We are recognizing that lifestyle has been diminished in the marketplace
Yes.
in favor of prescriptive solutions. The average person our age is on a dozen prescriptions, half of them for the side effects of the other half. My dad at 90, me today, none. Supplements, yes.
Yes, I agree.
Hydration, restorative sleep, activity, laughing, enjoying, gratitude. We practice all of that.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with you on that. The other thing about Jaded Health is I've included 17 short stories and parables with life lessons. And I've applied those life lessons to eating healthier because a couple of the stories will resonate with some people and some will resonate with others. The whole idea is to communicate and be able to share the message in a way that people will understand. So that's why I like the Jaded Health because of the short stories in there that people find very helpful. And I always ask them which one is their favorite.
And I want to compliment you on using the staff of Caduceus, not Medusa. The
Yes.
AMA somehow got married to the Medusa.
Yeah, the double serpent is the den of thieves. It's not very
Right.
medical, which I find ironic.
Ironic.
Just medical for most people.
Well, a brief little anecdote. When I was first here in Washington, I happened to be walking on Capitol Hill past the House Ways and Means Committee. It was then under Wilbur Mills, who was a very powerful chairman, and next door was his chief of staff, who happened to be the brother of the president of the AMA. That's how powerful the AMA was at that time.
Yes.
Now it's no longer a tiger. It's more a pussycat at the moment because many physicians have decided to discontinue their membership in the AMA because it doesn't really serve their goals. It doesn't really serve how they want to serve patients. More
Yeah.
and more are integrative, holistic, functional. Um, I'm glad I was help found the American Holistic Medical Association back in the late 1970s under Norm Shealy and some real important but very committed and very nice people.
Yeah.
So we are rediscovering nature, our personal nature, our environment, all of which have a lot to do with how well we function and feel. I saw an interview with Warren Buffett, and he said the most important thing in his life has been to enjoy his life.
I agree. That's like you said, laughing is one of the best medicines. I have a friend who was a former nurse, and she said when she was being a nurse, the question was, are you on any medications?
Yes,
Today, the question is, what medications are you
right.
on? Because as you mentioned, most people are on medications, and the medications don't resolve the underlying issue.
No,
They
no,
just
no, they
mask.
put a Band-Aid on it or they mask, but then they shift the problem from one place to another. My colleague with whom I studied acupuncture way back when under Quing Wu, Patch Adams, he recommended what he called chakra therapy, laughter therapy. You don't even have to laugh at something, but laugh. In a very famous case of ankylosing spondylitis, and an editor from, I think, Atlantic or Saturday Review, NIH refused to administer intravenous vitamin C despite his doctor's recommendation because vitamin C had not been documented, had not been studied enough about safety and efficacy. So this guy checks out of NIH Clinical Center, checks into the Hay Adams Hotel, watched reruns of Candid Camera. That made him laugh. And Jeffrey Herzig administered 50 grams of vitamin C twice a day, and he recovered. And then he went on to a post career setting up an interdisciplinary science center at UCLA. So there are good things happening. There are fresh shoots renewing. There are people who are speaking truth to power.
Yeah, and what people need to understand is that if you're over 50, there's an 80% probability you're a type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic. Number one, it's reversible if you haven't had it too long. And number two, it's preventable. And
Absolutely. And it didn't used to be. It's been doubling every decade for decades and
yeah,
continues to grow because of our lifestyles.
with that, and also the food. That's what I tell people. It's
Oh,
not
no,
the
but that's part of the lifestyle.
Oh
If you
yeah,
buy
yeah,
processed foods, if you buy
yeah.
anything from the deli, if you buy anything that is warm and in plastic, you are harming yourself.
Oh, I
But it's
agree. Yeah,
convenient.
that's it. Yeah.
There are ways of rationalizing that I don't have time to take care of myself today. Tomorrow, I'll take care of myself. Well, now is tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I say in the book that tomorrow never comes, and if tomorrow never comes and we put off till tomorrow what we can do today, we'll never do what we need to do. I'll start on Monday for my change in, my diet or my lifestyle. I'll wait till after vacation, after the holidays. So there's a lot of excuses people make. And like you said, just start now. Because if you never start, you'll keep putting it off until it's too late. And that's the thing. And I was reading somewhere that 80 or 90% of heart disease is preventable.
Oh, it's now 93% of cardiorenal disease is absolutely preventable and mostly reversible. But we can't use the science and the ideas of decades ago. It is about the quality of what you eat and drink, the quality of what you think and do, but especially to hydrate with quality mineral-rich beverages. Broths are an excellent source. I prefer to eat low on the food chain. That means no added sweeteners, no added grains, no added fats. When you separate the oil from the seed, harm comes in. When you eat seeds and nuts, you get plenty of healthy oil with other beneficial factors included. So if you're willing to return to a lifestyle that is natural, that is free of toxins, you can reduce by at least 80% the toxin exposure. And the other 20%, if you take targeted supplementation, you can help your liver, spleen, and kidneys. You can help your heart, blood vessels, and lungs. You can help your brains. You can help your nervous system and your hormones. All of this just by following 9 rules.
9 simple golden rules, basics, like you said. A lot of people may not realize, but high fructose corn syrup was introduced in the late 1970s.
Oh, no, no, no. No, it was being introduced before that. Fred Stair, a professor at Harvard Harvard School of Public Health, he convinced the scientific world and the food industry that high fructose corn syrup fooled nature. It did not raise insulin the way glucose did. But of course, when the fructose got into the cell, it became glucose and it increased your hemoglobin A1C,
Yeah.
which is bad. Your hemoglobin A1C should be 5%. Mine's been 5% for the last 15 years. When I weighed 65 pounds more, my hemoglobin A1C was not 5%. So I have learned personally and for my loved ones, and I now love almost everyone. There's still a few people I don't really like, but I really love almost everyone. And I want them all to feel and function as well as you do, as well as I do.
Yeah. The other thing, people should avoid any food that says fat-free
Oh,
because
yes.
it's Olean, which is a drug. It was originally Olestra, and that was a drug for reducing cholesterol, fat. And so they found out, oh, we can put it in food. And that's what I attempt to explain to people is read the ingredients if you're going to get anything in a package.
Well, the more ingredients, the more harm. The more ingredients that you don't really know what they mean, the more harm. I want to have as little package as possible.
Yeah.
I do. And I go out of my way to go to green grocers or to markets that have more fresh
Yeah.
and whole and less plasticized. But let me just continue. Fred Stair did such a good job of convincing the world that fructose was benign, that HFCS, high fructose corn syrup today, is subsidized. It is cheaper than water because it's an agricultural waste that the government needed and wanted to get rid of. And again, we decided to distribute this into the water supply or food supply of America to make it disappear.
Yeah.
And when he retired, he had a chateau overlooking Monaco Bay. Now, as a scientist, that would never happen. As a politician of science, it can happen.
Yeah. Howard Moskowitz, who coined the term bliss point, was proud that he scientifically engineered food to be addictive by optimizing our cravings for fat, salt, sugar, and texture.
It's called the crave factor. The food industry knows about this. They want to addict you to a beverage and a product that requires more and more and more of them with empty calories, harmful calories.
Yeah.
And yes, some of the biggest supporters of the harm today are what are called food companies.
Yeah. My friend Mickey Gaffenstone has a quote, and she says, the food companies will get you sick, big pharma will keep you sick, and the diet and weight loss industries are aiding and abetting both of them.
Absolutely. And we deserve better. We can see the truth of evidence relevant to thriving today, and therefore make small incremental changes that have big personal benefits.
Absolutely. And again, I love being the inspiration and the example for others because I know if I can do it, they can do it too, and no excuses.
No, I agree with that. I think we lead by example. When a doctor is overweight and smoking and sitting, it's a little hard for them to preach the message of healthy lifestyle. So thank you so much for being you. Thank you for doing what you do as the health guy. Thank you for informing and inspiring us to live this way. So my thanks to you, and be well.
Thank you, Dr. Jaffe. Appreciate it.